Dzień dobry.
Dzień dobry.
Okay, I'm obviously here with MaNa, and this is just after he beat Nerchio in a much anticipated matchup, especially by you apparently, because you had the opportunity before the playoffs were actually known to call out, who did you want to pick, and some people probably thought you were like signing your own death warrant, like, oh, I want to play Nerchio and I'm going to beat him 3-0, like, what was the thinking doing that?
I wanted to play Nerchio because it's a new game, it's a Heart of the Swarm. In Wings of Liberty I would definitely not want to face him. In Heart of the Swarm I played him a couple of times on ladder, maybe 2 or 3 times, and I never lost to him. The games were way better on ladder than here in a tournament, but I'm happy about the results.
Well, you obviously didn't 3-0 him, but you had the lead in most of the series and you came out with it in the end, but a 3-2 series. Like, how close were the actual games? Like, was it, when you were actually in the games, were you so certain you were going to win?
Definitely not, because I am not really used to the Mutalisks yet, with the bigger speed and higher health regeneration. It's very hard to play versus Mutalisk for me, and Nerchio used them, I think every single game he used Mutalisks, so it was even harder than I could have thought. And he used them in a very strong way, because he didn't do like blind attacks with the Mutalisk. He always used them correctly with pretty nice positioning and counter attacks with Mutalisks. And there were some mistakes, especially in the last game on Metropolis, where he lost a lot of his Mutalisks just because of a mistake, and well, that's why I won.
So, obviously, the famous thing about your rivalry with Nerchio is that in general he was like winning all the time, pretty much, and it's one of these players where there's like a really bad-looking stat if you look it up online. So, is this where it's all going to turn around? It's going to be MaNa winning the matchup from here on out?
If I win like 3 times or 4 times in a row versus him in a tournament, then we might say it will be the other way around finally. But it's only one result. It was very close. The games were horrible, so I can't say if it will be like that all the time.
Actually, let's stick to the Nerchio topic for a little while before we go to the next games. So one thing that it brings to mind is, back in Wings of Liberty, obviously quite a different game, you seemed really frustrated when you lost to him at DreamHack 3-0, like more than normally so. Was it just losing to him? Was there an element of the fact that people, everyone was complaining about Zerg then at the time and he was one of the best Zergs, so what did you think?
I don't remember how the games looked like, but probably I was very frustrated because of the way I lost to him. Because if I don't care about who I lose to, if I play correctly, if I play what I plan to play. But always when I first face Nerchio, I always play very bad. I do some stupid mistakes, just some silly strategies. And I think it happened at DreamHack again, and it was even 3-0, so I was just even more frustrated. I think that was like the biggest frustration for me in the entire esports career.
Just based on the interviews I've seen with players at this tournament, it sounds like from their descriptions, the roles have almost switched for Protoss and Zerg, because now the Zergs complain that, if it goes to the late game, we can't possibly win, and Protoss in theory can play a bit more defensive and mass up. I mean, is this accurate? What do you think?
I think Zergs are whining too much, because they used Brutal Infestor for like maybe a year, and that's all they aimed for. Finally, in Heart of the Swarm, when the Infestor was nerfed and we got some new stuff like Void Rays to counter Corruptors or Broodlords, and especially Tempest, the Zergs has to start thinking. Not only like 1A, just go the final attack or something like this. They need to start do some Nidus Swarming, maybe just some drops, just some harass, I don't know, mind games. There are some Zergs who think. For example, it's Violet who uses Vipers very well, and it's very hard to play him. Same for Red, he uses Swarm Host, and with Corruptors and Hydras, which is very strong composition. The game is so new that it's so hard to tell who has the advantage. The smart guys will be the best all the time.
When I did my interview with Nerchio yesterday, before the game that took place now, and I was asking him, because, I mean, he's quite famous in thinking that Protoss was imbalanced even in Wings of Liberty, and now in Heart of the Swarm, he's convinced of it, He actually thinks that, basically, even if, because Protoss is imbalanced to him, even if the Protoss players aren't winning, that's just because the Protoss players haven't figured out how to abuse the imbalance. Like, is there anything to this theory whatsoever, in MaNa's opinion?
I think there's a lot of people complaining about Skytoss. Personally, I've been using it only once, and versus a guy who didn't know what to do whatsoever, so I have no opinion about Skytoss. I just see people complaining about it a lot. I just have to figure it out myself. I have no idea what to add for it, sorry.
When we talk about your group stage games, like, I don't want to go insanely in depth in them, because it's already passed anyway. But if we just looked at the group and we had our like Wings of Liberty hat on, thinking from that game, this would look like a really scary group because all these Zergs and the people who'd been tearing up the last half of the year. Now, I'm not calling any of them like patch tosses or whatever, but patch Zergs rather, obviously. But I mean, how different was it to play all those Zergs in Heart of the Swarm instead? Because we saw a couple of them bottoming out the group.
Yeah, if it was Wings of Liberty, I would have very low chances to advance. Snoot, Vortex, and Violet, extremely good Zergs. Then we have an addition to the Sting, and Soke, who is really, really strong always. It's hard to me to play versus Soke. But it's Heart of the Swarm, it's a new game. Everybody is not prepared for a tournament probably. There's no like build orders. I mean, there's no perfect build order because there's always some gaps in, because there's so much new things that we have to adapt, and it's just a matter of practice. So I'm happy it's Heart of the Swarm because that definitely helped me to pass the group.
Almost every player, a European player at least, when people asked them about Heart of the Swarm, said the same thing, like, oh, I think it'll suit me and I'll be much better, especially anyone who was doing badly. That was like their excuse as to why they'd be doing good all of a sudden. But actually, based on the results here, one could say maybe this Heart of the Swarm will be much better for MaNa, because the one problem you had was PVZ, and then somehow you would always get these, like, home story type group, second group stage was like all Zerg. And so is this like the switch you needed, where suddenly you're going to become like the top European player maybe?
I'm definitely liking Heart of the Swarm so far. I like learning new game. I like competing with others, with like adapting so quickly. PVZ will be definitely a better matchup for me. I will not have to be scared of Broodlord Infestor as for now. Maybe there will be another composition. Although, as I said, I'm happy with Heart of the Swarm so far. We'll see how good I can adapt to it.
So you got past Nerchio, where a lot of people maybe, well, because of the record, would have said, okay, Nerchio will win this game. And then your reward for that is to now go and play MVP, best of 5. And what do you think of this?
As I said in the post-interview after I beat Nerchio, I've considered MVP as the best player in this tournament so far. I've watched all of his games in the group stage, and he looks quite invincible. There's like no secret for MVP. He's just a very good player, very collected player, mentally and physically as well. If you can see that he can always play like even 1 hour or 1.5 hour games, and it's no problem for him. It's just amazing how good he is.
Whenever I hear people in Wings of Liberty describe the strengths of MVP, what people usually kind of pinpoint it down to is because he's like so good in terms, like you were saying, they're very versatile, can play all sorts of games. It allows him to then make use of the fact that he's really good at like planning out a series, like when I'm going to do my cheeses and stuff. Do you think the fact that it's Heart of the Swarm and basically there's almost nothing of MaNa to watch in Heart of the Swarm, does that maybe give you a better chance, the fact that he can't like go and look up a load of stuff about you?
I don't think it's a better chance for me. If it was Wings of Liberty, I would have higher chances versus MVP, I think, because I felt way much better in Wings of Liberty PvT, because I figured out almost everything. So it was just a matter of execution of build orders or just micro. And now in Heart of the Swarm Torn got 3 new stuff, which is Widow Mines, Spear Medivacs, and Hellbats. And in PvT, Protoss got, well, mostly Oracle, which can be useful, and Mothership Core, which can be very good and very useful for defense, so we can be more greedy. But in the medium or later stage of the game, Terran got more opportunities and more units to use them better versus Protoss. So I think it gives a slight, I mean, MVP has an advantage above me, but it gives him even more advantage against me, I think.
There's a lot of Koreans, obviously, in the playoffs. Some really big names like Parting's MVP. So a lot of people will obviously be doing the safe bet, like none of those players will win the tournament for sure. If you had to make a case as to why MaNa will win this tournament, like what would you tell people? What should they look for?
I don't know. I would have to win first, but if you ask me, I have no idea how to answer this question. Maybe I just adapted well enough. Maybe Protoss is imbalanced. I have no idea what to say. I have no idea.
Do you have any final thoughts? Anyone you want to say hello to? Thank you.
Thank you for the interview. Thank to all my fans for the support I got. It's amazing how many of you are there. And I would like to thank MaNa Sports and our sponsors, BenQ, Razer, Tortec and Guile for supporting me for all these years.
Dziękuję.
Dziękuję bardzo.